Well, can you guess where Scott Hecht works? Can you guess where he is right now? He is at Syracuse, executive producer, director with the ACC Network at Syracuse. He has had a lavish, distinguished career in sports broadcasting from ESPN, working with the Chargers and the Padres and in Arizona. Spent a lot of time in Phoenix as well. He has this distinguished career, and we're going to look at it and have some fun doing it in the process. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor for Fox Sports Radio and a tennis broadcaster for the USTA. Scott, I know you've got a lot of San Diego ties. I'm from San Diego as well. And I have a feeling that you've run across Nick Davis before. Knowing your ties
for a long time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the really
What was a young
guys.
Nick Davis like when you guys were working with each other early on in your careers?
That's a neat question. You know what? Hard worker, great personality, great guy. And you could say the same thing about him today. He hasn't really changed. So if you know Nick today, you know what Nick was, 25 years ago. One of the really, really super nice people in this business.
I think a lot of your students now would say that about you and your career. Obviously, you spend a lot of time with, you TVG, ESPN, the list goes on. What do you accomplish internally when teaching at Syracuse that you didn't get anywhere else in other prior stops of your career?
It's a great question. I think the satisfaction of helping others, I was helped. We all get some help in some way, shape, or form. The satisfaction of paying it forward. I'm a real big believer in paying it forward in this business. I love what I do. I feel so blessed to have the opportunities that I've had to meet people, to work on projects, to travel places. It's been a whirlwind. It's been, for me, it's been 37 years in this business, which is really hard to believe. And it's flown by, but every day it's something different. Every day it's fun, but paying it forward is really a big thing for me, Bryan, because as lucky as I've been, I hope others get those types of opportunities. And it's really satisfying when you come across somebody and they say, if I don't remember them, that they say, hey, I worked with you on it, at Syracuse, or I worked with you at Channel 4 in San Diego, or, I worked on a show with you when you came through town and you took the time and you talked to me, and that really kind of stuck with me. That's the best part of this job, and that makes me really feel like I'm doing something positive, in the business.
Yeah, one of the many examples of that, I was listening to Don Cardona and his podcast when he had you on, and I love Don. Don's a neat friend, and he was saying how you gave him his first shot in the business. And so that's just one of the many examples of the way in which Scott Hecht is there to help others and bring others along into the business. He is with us, of course, executive producer, director at ACC Network at Syracuse. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. When you look at the bevy of your work, Scott, where do you find yourself most self-critical of what you've done, and where you're hardest on yourself in the way in which you get your work done at the level of which you're trying to execute it at?
It's probably, I think I critique myself after every show, regardless of what it is, what level it is. I address every telecast like it's the 7th game of the World Series.
Wow. I
still get butterflies in my stomach before every telecast, and I hope and pray that never changes. So, when I was younger in the business, I used to always make copies of games. I used to bring, again, dating myself, I used to bring VHSs to the truck. And then it moved up to DVDs, and then it became thumb drives. And now I can go home and I can watch the games on ESPN Plus and critique it. I'm never satisfied, Bryan, with what I've done. I'm not one who lives off of any past successes that I've had. I'm just really, I'm not tough to the point where I'm beating myself up over it, but even still to this day, if I'm calling a game and I call something, and then in my head, it's like, why did you go there? In my head, I'm screaming at myself, you idiot, why did you do that? But I learned from it, and I try not to make those same mistakes. Arnie Harris was a mentor for me. And for those who are watching and listening, if they don't know who Arnie was the director for the Chicago Cubs for 100 years. And probably the greatest lesson I ever learned from anybody, anytime Arnie would come through for spring training in Phoenix, I'd always get with Arnie. Arnie knew that I wanted to direct or produce Major League Baseball. And he took me under his wing. And anytime he came to town, he always checked in with me. And probably the greatest lesson I've ever learned in this business is there's no such thing as a perfect telecast. Sure. And as much as we all strive for a perfect telecast, there is no such thing as a perfect telecast. Something's going to go wrong. You're going to upcut a mic. TD's going to hit a wrong button. I'm going to call a wrong shot. Talent might stumble on something. There's just no chance to make a perfect telecast. It's never happened, and it never will. I strive for that. I work hard for that, but in the back of my head, I know that it's not really an attainable goal. But again, that's what we all strive for. And again, that's why to this day now, I know not to beat myself up. When I first started in the business, I didn't understand that you couldn't be perfect. And now that I am, I'm a little bit easier on myself. But again, anybody who has the opportunity to work on a front bench, anybody has an opportunity to work on a show, and regardless of the position, we all strive to be perfect. But again, these types of things happen. You know, when you think of how many different things happen in a show, how many button pushes, how many fader, you know, and calling shots and camera guys doing moves and stuff. There's a million things that happen in a telecast, and the likelihood that it's all going to be perfect, it's just not going to happen. So to answer my long-winded answer is, I used to beat myself up on things. I've learned over the years not to beat myself up, but I'm constantly still learning.
You're easier on yourself, but you're at the same time still striving for that perfection. You're also striving for perhaps that approval from your peers. How do you look at the way in which you want to be viewed by your peers?
It is really important for me. My dad is my hero. My dad, I'm lucky my dad is still with us. My dad is now 91 years old. And my dad taught me a long time ago, if people remember you for being a nice person, you've achieved a lot in your life. And I live by that. I really, really do. I might not be the greatest producer, director, whatever, but that's not important to me anymore. You know, we all had goals. You know, I wanted to be the president of ESPN like everybody else. You know, we all have those dreams. But then, the thing that I would always come back to is, I want to be a nice guy. I want people to like me. I want people to respect me. I learned a long time ago, a happy crew is a good crew. And if people like you, they work harder with you. And I live by that every single day, Bryan. That is probably the most important thing. That's not just a business thing for me. That is my personal identity. That's my own personal everyday goal, is to be nice to people so that people will always remember me for being a good guy.
That's so well said. When you look at your career and what you've done, when is there a moment when you could have used a pick-me-up speech where maybe things weren't going the way you were hoping for, but you were able to talk yourself through a tough time, and it was an obstacle that you can look back and say it was a great learning experience over the course of your career, and one in which you can tell others about, one in which we can all learn and grow from, and see what you overcame?
Oh boy. I guess there's a lot of those. But, no, I hope not. You know, when I first got to ESPN, I think everybody has these ideals. What is it like to work at ESPN? You know, you walk in and here's the manual. Here's how we do everything at ESPN. And the first thing I learned was there's no manual. You're not going to find it anywhere. There isn't. So when I first got to ESPN, I didn't struggle, but it's like, why is this so challenging? I've done this for years. Why am I not just flourishing? And this, I thought I was going to walk through the doors and it was all going to be easy, trying to figure it out. And I beat myself up over that. I remember laying in bed at night and looking at the ceiling and going, why, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, from an ease of standpoint. Once I realized, and talked to people there, and they said, there is no manual. You just kind of get thrown to the wolves, you figure it out. Then I was easier on myself. And because of that, like I said, to this day, if somebody struggles with something, if I give somebody an assignment and they struggle, I take the time to go back and explain it. I understand that just because I might think that it's easy doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy for the next person. So it's really important for me to communicate. Communication is really, really important. It drives me crazy. The old saying, we work in a communications industry and we don't communicate. It's really important to take the time to go around, to talk to your guys. There are some people, they walk right in, Bryan, and they just kill it from day one, and they're awesome. And you sit back and you go, that's why this guy's on the show or this girl's on the show. There are others you go, oh my gosh, you kind of want to pull your hair out, but you know that they're trying hard. So go back, take the time, sit down, talk to them. What is it that's giving you problems? All right, let's simplify it. I want everybody to succeed in this business. And again, like I said before, if I succeed, if everybody else succeeds, then I succeed. So it's just really important to take the time. That's something I learned, was take the time, communicate with other people, because again, there was nothing wrong with it at ESPN. It's the way that ESPN is. I love working at ESPN. I still think it's an outstanding place. I've got nothing, I will ever say anything bad about ESPN. It provided me so many opportunities and so many friends and all the wonderful things that I've had the opportunity to do. So I will never say a bad thing about ESPN, but that was the one thing that was tough to learn at the beginning. But then I found people at ESPN who were willing to help me out. So it all worked out in the end.
Scott Hecht is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. And like you said, you are, on the grassroots ground of just being able to help these students, and you take your invaluable experience to really do everything you can to build up their careers. Reflecting it back on them, what do the students teach you?
Great question. I love always watching your cast because you ask great questions.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate that.
I think what the students teach me is, it's not so much teaching, it's an appreciation. That I really, working with students and seeing the students who want to do this, who are hungry for this, who want to succeed, who want to learn, I thrive off of how excited they are. When we have a good show and we give our students opportunities to work on our big shows and they do well, and to see how happy they are and excited they are, that's what I get out of it. It's really fun to see their exuberance, because that's when we all had those opportunities, I think we were that way, but we never got to see it, from the other side. Now I get to see it from the other side. So I think that's probably the thing that I probably have learned more, is just to see their appreciation of getting opportunities and succeeding.
One of the things I'm curious about is, because when you're at Newhouse, you have so much talent on camera, behind the scenes, and knowing that you're such a great evaluator of talent and what you've done over the course of your distinguished career, how early are you able to recognize, maybe is it the first encounter you see somebody, or where you're able to see, man, I think he or she is going places, and you have this immediate hunch? I mean, obviously some people are able to find their way, and it takes a little bit longer to get to where they want to get to. Others, you can see the stardom right away. How early can you detect that in your students?
Somebody who's in front of the camera, I can see it pretty quickly. You can see the ease, you can see the understanding, the comfort. They may stumble a little, but again, that's understood. They're excited, they're nervous. So it's easier to see it from in front of the camera. Behind the camera, my philosophy, the way that I've always done it, Bryan, is I will always, in a case like Don Cardona, Don showed up at the truck, said, hey, I'm really interested in this. And I said, it's the way that I do things, which is I say, great, you can come out, you can watch, you're free to go out and hang out by the camera guys. If you want, we'll plug you in so you can listen, you can sit in the truck, you can kind of just move around and see if you like this, and then you're free to come back whenever you want. The free to come back whenever you want is the key, because a lot of people in this business get inundated by people who want to work in the business, and you say, great, come on out, we'll show you what we do. They maybe show up one time and then you never see them again. The way I evaluate the ones who have the potential behind the camera are the ones that keep coming back. You keep coming back, you know, there are things that we all don't know when we first start in this business. That's understood. It's something new. The technology has changed so much. There's a lot to digest and a lot to learn in this business. So I don't expect somebody to come out and just kill it day one.
Sure.
I want to see them keep coming back. I tell them, you know, in the control room, I want them to come to the control room. And I say, and I always point, and I always say my corny line, and everybody who knows me knows I'm full of corny lines. All of our chairs in the control room have wheels on them. And I tell them, I said, there's a reason they have wheels on them, because I want you to move around the room. I want you to sit behind the producer. I want you to sit with the graphics team. I want you to go back into video shading. I want you to sit in audio. I want you to sit with the replay people, because that I want them to find what is it that they kind of lean towards. Hey, wow, this really interests me. And then when they start to come back, you see the eyes get bigger, you see them get excited. And that's what tells me that this person is going to be successful in the business. I mean, and again, success is all elementary. We don't know what somebody's success could be here. Somebody's success could be the president of ESPN someday. And somebody else's success is they're going to be a damn good EVS operator. So it's really all about giving them opportunities, seeing them excited. And that's where I can kind of judge if this person is going to be good or not in the business.
And this all goes back to the fulfillment for you to see all this take place. And we talked about early on about why you do this and what you get out of it. And when you see the smiles, when you see the learning that is happening and the way in which you're impacting futures, I can't think of a more priceless thing, Scott, that you're doing right now. And I have one more question for you. You talked about your father and the role he has played in your life and how everything about what you do and just there's this amazing devotion you have to him and your relationship over the years. How much of what you do in this business and from a career standpoint is to seek out that love and validation from your father?
Another great question. Years ago when I was in San Diego with the Padres, my dad is a huge baseball fan. I am a huge, people know me, know I am a huge baseball fan, huge Cincinnati Reds fan. I brought Dad down one night. I said, you want to come sit in the truck? And he said, yeah, sure. Dad always knew I worked in television, but like most of our parents, they don't really quite understand what we do. They know we're a producer or a director, but they don't know how the job works. So I sat Dad back on the third bench in the truck one night and set him up with a headset, and he watched the game from in there and saw how I produced the game. Then I had somebody take him upstairs to the booth. We put him in the back row behind our talent and put an IFB in his ear so he could experience from that way. And on the way home, driving my dad back home, he was staying at our house. They would come over from Phoenix. And he said, wow, I've never realized how much you do on these shows and what you do. And that was the greatest validation to see how proud he was of me, Bryan. And there are certain things in this world that you don't ever forget. but to see how proud my dad was, and for him to tell me how proud, he tells me how proud he is of me all the time. But that one particular time was about what I do for a living. And that made me it made me feel so good. And it's still a conversation that I will remember for the rest of my life and will cherish for the rest of my life. And it was just from a drive from Qualcomm Stadium up to Temecula where we were living. So it was about a 45-minute drive, and it was Dad and I just one-on-one, just talking about what he saw that night, and him talking about how proud he was, because he knew how hard I worked to get to that level, to have that opportunity to get to do Major League Baseball. And that is just one of those things that I will never, ever forget. And when I think of my dad, that's just one of those memories that I will always cherish.
And to this day, you have become like that relationship with your father. I feel like it influences you on a daily basis, because you've become a father-like figure to your students, and hearing what you do, because it's not just about, hey, I'm here overseeing you during the designated time of when our class is or when our broadcast is. This is what makes you special. This is why I wanted to have you on, is because you take it to the next notch, because you care so much about your student. It's not just about the responsibilities that you're paid to do. You take it a step further, and that is why you're an icon in this business, and why you're beloved, and why I'm so grateful to have you on this podcast. Scott Hecht, ACC Network Executive Producer Director with Syracuse. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. This has been so much fun, man. Next time you get out to the West Coast, would love to say hi. Thanks so much for these great stories. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much, Bryan. And again, the work you're doing is fantastic, and keep it up, because it's must see watch. I'll call it must see television. It's must see television for me. I enjoy every single one of these casts that you do.